In this tutorial, we're going to add a snare drum to our already existing hi-hat and bass drum. Now it may be worthwhile at this point renaming some of our clips. To rename a clip, simply select it and press the Command key, it's the one that says CMD, and press R. You can then rename this to whatever you wish to. I'm going to call my first one Kick. This is my closed hi-hat. And this is my open hi-hat. Now the snare drum is going to go on a Midi channel, but as you can see we have no spare Midi channels left. We're going to create our own. Control click on this grey tab up here and click on Insert Midi Track. We can move this around depending on your preferred view. Double click to create a clip. Our snare is going to fall on the D1 key on 1.2 and 1.4. We're going to use the towel noisemaker again, so we're going to drag the towel noisemaker onto our snare channel and open the Synth 2 part. If we listen to this clip, we obviously still don't have the desired sound. A snare drum is the more complicated instrument to try and synthesize. This is because there are two elements to a snare drum. You have the top skin, which is where you would traditionally hit the drum, and underneath you have a snare wire. So we are going to use oscillator 1 and 2 in slightly different ways to recreate this. We're going to use a triangle wave in oscillator 2. This will form the top skin of our snare drum. And we're going to use a noise wave to recreate the sound of the snare wires rattling underneath. We will need to adjust the oscillator volumes accordingly. To begin with, I'm going to turn this one down to about halfway and oscillator 2 all the way up to the top. We can change these later if we need to. I'm also going to remove any sub-frequencies. As you can hear, we have the two sounds now, and it's just a question of making those appear more like a drum. In the same way as previously, we're going to use the decay to shorten the length of the sample. We now have something that sounds a little more like a snare drum, and we can control the volume of the oscillators depending on how much ring you want the snare drum to have. The last thing I'm going to do on this is to control the pitch, similar to how we did with the bass drum. I'm going to assign the second ADSR to the pitch control of oscillator 2. I'm going to use a short decay, and I'm going to turn my destination up until it creates something that sounds a bit more interesting. A final thing we may actually do is use the filter control just to take out some of the low end frequency content. To remove the low end, we need to use a high pass filter. if we play this along with everything else, we now have a standard 4 to the floor bass drum, hi-hat and snare drum beat.